Welcome to TSRA-2A Ricochet. Your host is Andy Turner, the Legislative Director podcast of the Texas State Rifle Association. We'll discuss your 2A rights, legislation, hunting, competition, you name it. Join in and be part of the discussion. Now here's your host, Andy Turner.
Welcome back to TSRA-2A Ricochet. I am your Legislative Director, Andy Turner. This is Stephen Willeford, also known as the Barefoot Defender. Apparently it's club. We'll talk about that later. He was involved in Sutherland Springs, and I will not steal his story. But I will say to you, there was a church in Sutherland Springs you may or may not have heard almost 5 years ago that was the victim of a mass shooting. I'm going to let Stephen tell the whole story because he tells it so well and he was there, and what have I got to say? But let me set the stage. We know now that the shooter was Patrick Kelly. We know now that he received a bad conduct discharge for domestic violence misdemeanor. At the time, there was, going back to 1996, there was something called the Lautenberg Amendment that required that all courts report to NICS any conviction of misdemeanor domestic violence or felony domestic violence. And at the time, it did not address the UCMJ. And so then we get into a pickle. So let's start at the beginning. Stephen, November 5th, 2017. What were you up to?
Well, the day started out pretty normal. I did choose not to go to church that day because I was going to start an on-call at the hospital where I worked as a maintenance plumber. And what on-call means is you have to carry a pager. Mm-hmm. A lot of your millennials don't even have a concept of what a pager is, but it's this confounded little box that goes off and beeps and lets you know even where a phone can't get a connection, your pager will get a hold of you. And I had 10 minutes to call into work and then had an hour to be at work, taking care of any plumbing emergencies at a 3 million square foot facility with 2 extra million square foot of outpatient facilities and stuff. So I knew I was going to be working anywhere from 20 to 30 extra hours that week. So I chose to stay home from church that day and relax and get ready for my start of my on-call. And that morning, my oldest daughter had moved back into the house with us because she was engaged to be married. And we're kind of an old-fashioned kind of family. And she was going to live with us until she got married so she could move in with her husband. She didn't want to sign another contract with a apartment that she would be bound to when she got married. So and if you're going to live with us and rent-free, you're going to do chores. So that morning she was doing the dishes and cleaning the house. And she heard the gunfire and came running into my bedroom and said, "Dad, doesn't that sound like gunfire to you?" I was an NRA instructor for several years and coached a youth shooting team and competed in competition and stuff. I know very much what gunfire sounds like. That portion of the house was a little bit better insulated, and it sounded like someone tapping in my window. And she said, "No, come into the kitchen. It's different." And when I came into the kitchen, I realized that it was gunfire. I ran to my safe. I grabbed out an AR-15, and people will ask, why did you grab a AR-15 instead of a pistol? If you have a choice of a pistol or a rifle and you know you're going into a gunfight, always choose a rifle. AR-15 is the perfect defensive gun. And I defended my community with an AR-15 rifle. I ran across the street, and as I did, I yelled out, and that seems crazy to have yelled out like I did. People don't understand. They say, why would you give away your element of surprise? And I question that too, other than the fact that I truly believe that God had his hand on me at that moment. And God called out a demon out of the church. In the church, and I don't mention his name. The killer had shot Chris Workman in the back, and Chris was instantly paralyzed from the waist down. And then he shot Chris's mother through the breast, and he was walking over to finish him off as he had done all up and down the pews. He ended up murdering 26 people and wounded 20 more. And Chris was looking down the barrel of his pistol at the moment I yelled. And again, I truly believe that God called out a demon, because he immediately stopped what he was doing, dropped his rifle in the church, and came out of the church shooting at me with his pistol. I ran behind a pickup truck for cover, and he hit the truck in front of me. He shattered the windshield of the car behind me, and he hit the house behind me, and I came up over the hood of the truck, and I put 6 out of 6 rounds on him. He had on Class 3 body armor. And for any of your viewers that might not know, for any of your viewers that might not understand, Class 2 is what the police department normally carries, and it will stop pistols. Class 3 will stop rifles, including AR-15s. I hit him in the left chest. I hit him in the abdomen, which he felt. The coroner's report said he had contusions on his chest and on his abdomen. He immediately stopped shooting at me for the moment and ran for his vehicle. When he turned to his side, it has a front plate, it has a rear plate,
right,
and it's opened at the side. I put one in his side in between the plates, and I put one high in his legs. He had on a ballistic-style bulletproof helmet. He was able to get into his vehicle, and then he put 2 more shots through the side window at me. And I saw the glass open up and pieces falling down. I put my rifle where I perceived his head to be. I really couldn't see it because of the reflection of the sun. I pulled the trigger, and the coroner's report said it broke across his forehead, just underneath the rim of the helmet.
Wow.
He accelerated, he turned the corner, and he was fleeing as fast as he could in his vehicle. He had a little gray Ford Explorer, Ford Escape. And by the time I ran into the middle of the road, he was about 150 yards away. I put one last shot through the back windshield of his car. It shattered. The police say that bullet went through the driver's side seat and hit him just right at the left shoulder blade. And he topped the hill and out of sight. I'm standing in the middle of the street saying, it can't end this way. It can't end this way. And I looked off to my left, and there was a pickup truck that was stopped at the stop sign. And I looked in, and the driver was on the phone with 911, and they put him straight through to dispatch. I ran over and I tapped on the window and said, that guy just shot up the Baptist church and we have to stop him. Now, picture it in your head. I'm barefooted, standing in the middle of the street, run over, and I tap on the window, and he just witnessed a shootout. And I got an AR-15, and I run over and I tap on his window. Any sane person in this world would have put his foot on the floor and drove off and left me. But this is Texas we're talking about. We're not known for our sanity.
We don't run. We don't run from a fight.
We're not known for our sanity, a sense of duty and honor. Johnny Langendorf, the next thing I heard were the locks come open on Johnny's doors. And I climbed up in the cab of a truck with a long, tall Texan. He's probably 6'2", very thin build, very good looking young man, had a white Western hat on, had a big feather sticking out of the hat, toothpick in his mouth, had a longhorn skull tattooed in the middle of his neck.
Wow.
Horns run up underneath his ears.
Wow.
And, you know, all I can say about Johnny is just Texan through and through. He never said a word to me. I climbed up in the seat. He accelerated and started chasing the vehicle down the road. And he's on the phone with dispatch, and he's telling them when he crosses the road, and we're just running in the general direction of the guy. We didn't see him at the moment, but we're chasing him in the direction that he ran. And I dropped the magazine out of my rifle because I just grabbed a handful of ammo, and I didn't know how many rounds I had fired, nor did I know how many rounds that I loaded. And I dropped the magazine out, and I'm looking at one round in the top of the magazine, one round in the chamber. And I told him, I said, tell them, hurry, hurry. I have 2 rounds left. And he still has on Class 3 body armor. Now it's getting real. We're chasing down the road, and the guy still got on Class 3 body armor. And I want to tell you people out there, I am a big fan of the thin blue line and law enforcement.
Sure.
Absolutely, men and women that go out every day and put on a uniform and a vest and a gun, and they're willing to risk their lives to save yours, even though they don't even know who you are.
Right.
I never wanted to see red and blue lights more in my life.
I would imagine.
And we're running down the road, and I have 2 rounds left. And as we started catching him, I could see that we were catching up to him. And I looked, and I didn't know Johnny. I'd never met him before in my life. I looked at him, and I said, if you catch him, you're going to have to put him off the road. Johnny's got his hand on his cell phone here, one hand on the steering wheel, doing over 100 miles per hour probably. And he looked at me, and he said, the first thing he said to me, he said, yep, I already figured that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God,
boy.
He's probably thinking, I always wanted to try a pit maneuver. Johnny's an amazing young man that when asked to do something very terrifying, and I have no other words other than terrifying, people ask me, were you scared? No, I was not scared at all. I was terrified. I was so far past scared. There's something
wrong with you if you weren't.
Exactly. That's the stupidest question I've ever been asked. Were you scared? But at some point you do what you have to do. And I want to say thank God in this country we have a Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. It allows us to own and carry a gun and to be able to defend our families, our friends, our communities, and even our state and our nation. Thank God we have that ability in this country, and let it never go.
Let me bring you back. So you're in the truck. You're looking down the road. What happened?
As we came up to him, he pulled off into the ditch at the side of the road. Okay. He had a traffic sign in front of him, as you see a lot of, a curve sign. And he parked with his vehicle with that curve sign right in front of it. And I thought, man, he didn't even leave himself a way out. And Johnny pulled up still on the road, but behind him, and stopped. And I reached over with my left hand, and I opened the door. I put my rifle through the window with my right hand, and I was going to step out. I was going to use the door as a as a shield to stop the bullets.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, this has got to be real good. I only have 2 rounds left. And before my foot hit the ground, and I didn't have shoes on even. Right. It didn't take time to put my shoes on. That's why they call me the Barefoot Defender. Before I put my foot on the ground, he accelerated. He hit the sign. It flipped over the back of the vehicle and onto the ground. And he ran right back onto the road. And I barely got my foot back in the vehicle before I slammed the door, and Johnny was after him again. And this time he went about 3/4 of a mile up the road. He swerved off to his left and through a fence and about 50 yards away out into a field. And Johnny stopped on the road. And I told Johnny, I said, just get below the dash, stay out of any bullets, just, stay out of the way. And I got out and I put my rifle across the hood of the truck, and Johnny got out doing what all millennials nowadays would do. He pulls his phone out and
good for him.
Started videoing. No, not so much. The police didn't like that. He was live streaming on Facebook. They confiscated his phone for evidence. And
well, I mean, that's the purpose of the video, though, right? Is to provide evidence. That's why you do it. It's not for fun. If you're going to film a crime or what you believe to be a crime, you can expect your phone to go bye-bye.
I stayed there with my gun over the hood of the truck.
Yeah.
Between 5 and 7 minutes estimated. The police said 5 to 7 minutes. They were 5 to 7 minutes behind me. 5 to 7 minutes is an eternity, and my community didn't have another 5 to 7 minutes. And I'm standing there with AR-15 with a EOTech on it, aimed at the side of a vehicle, thinking, where are the police? Where are the police? And then I heard from the left side, I heard, driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up. I looked up to my left side on the road, about 50 yards behind me were the police department.
Thank God.
And the police officer was standing there with a pistol in his right hand, a microphone in his left hand, and standing behind his police cruiser door. And he keyed the mic and he said it again, driver, get out of your vehicle with your hands up. Your viewers need to know, absolutely, when the police arrive, if you're in a situation like this, that officer may not know what's going on.
Right.
And he wants to go home to his family. And only thing in my mind was make sure he knows I'm not the problem.
Right.
I laid my rifle on the hood of Johnny's truck and I came back with my hands up, palms out.
Right.
So he would know that I'm not a threat.
Right.
And I came to the back of Johnny's truck and he keyed the mic and he looked at me and he made eye contact. He said, not you.
Oh. So he knew.
He knew who I was. Apparently, he had been talked to by dispatch. He knew who I was. And at that moment, I was 50 yards from the shooter. He was 100 yards from the shooter. I had a rifle, even though I still had 2 rounds. I had a rifle at 50 yards. He had a pistol at 100 yards, and he knew that I still had a tactical advantage. So I went over and I picked up my rifle and continued to watch until other officers showed up. And this time they were getting AR-15s out of the back of their squad cars and coming in. And I was like, okay, I am done.
Right. I've done my bit. Yeah.
I'm over my head.
Right. Yeah.
I pulled my rifle off the hood of the truck and I laid it on the back of Johnny's toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm trying to stand in the shade of Johnny's truck. That November, it was 90 degrees. And my feet were starting to get warm. The adrenaline was gone and my feet were starting to get warm. And I'm trying to hang on to the bed of Johnny's truck and keep my feet in the shade.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited 30 to 45 minutes. And finally, I couldn't figure out what they were trying to do, why they didn't approach or anything. Later on, it made sense. They went to get a drone, to fly a drone over and see what was going on with him.
Sure.
And so they were waiting on the drone so that they didn't put an officer at risk. And I'm okay with that. And I don't care if they waited till he bled to death. I don't care. But at some point I decided I was going to run back to the police line. And when I started to run, the officers called out, no, stay there. We'll bring a police cruiser up. You can use it for cover to come back. And that's what we did. And they set me down on the guardrail and the adrenaline was coming down, and an officer walked by me and said, I asked him, I said, excuse me, can I call my wife? Because I could see my wife up the road about 200 yards. I could see her car, and they had set up a roadblock to keep anyone from going down there. He kept walking. He said, sure, call your wife. And I said, no, can I use your phone? And he looked at me. He said, you don't have a phone? I said, I'm barefoot.
Ran out of the house.
I said, I'm barefoot. My shoes weren't important. My phone was less important than that. I don't have a phone. So he allowed me to use his phone. And I called my wife and I said, I need a pair of shoes. My feet are hot. And she said, well, I have my Crocs, but that's all I have. And I asked the officer, I said, can I go back there and get my wife's shoes? And he said, no, you need to stay here. I said, but my feet are hot. And so he opened up the back of his squad car. He said, well, you can sit in the back of my car. I'm like, no, I'm okay.
Yeah. Not a place anybody really wants to be.
I really didn't want to sit in the back of that police car.
Right.
But what turned out to happen is the shooter, when he realized he was being pursued and he was shot multiple times,
right,
he called his father and his wife were together because he had handcuffed his wife that morning to a bed before he left. And before he started shooting, he called his father and said, my wife needs you. And so his father went over and unhandcuffed his wife, and they were together. And when I was chasing him down the road, he apparently called them and said, I've done something horrible. And he says, I've been shot multiple times. I'm not going to make it. And he turned the gun on himself and he killed himself. And I'm okay with that. I personally think he was coughing up blood and dying anyway.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the fact he took his own life.
Well, I have all the feelings about that. And one of them is, yes, absolutely. And another one is, I don't want to get into the moral dilemma of suicide, but yeah, he's gone. And thank you for just being willing to just act on behalf of not just your community, but really Texas and all of us. And, I know you get a little, because when we talked in the cabin, we met, and I was like, that was an incredibly brave thing to do, because even though you were terrified, you did it anyway. And I know that makes you just a little uncomfortable because we talked quite a few times, but doing what was necessary, what others would be legitimately too afraid to act on, you weren't. And that's a very big deal. Now,
well, here's the thing. And I explain this is I know where I am. I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. I know my Savior, Jesus Christ. I know where I am. I know who I am. I know where I'm going after I die. And I have some news for everyone that's listening. You're all going to die someday.
Yeah.
Every one of us are going to cross that river. We're going to cross that. All going to die someday. So why be afraid of the inevitable?
Right. Exactly. And, yeah. I mean, that's a really good point.
And I don't want to go to my Maker, my Creator, my God, and him ask me, why didn't you do what I asked you to do when I asked you to do it? I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant.
God bless you, Stephen. All right. We're going to do this in two parts. So the next episode that we're going to tape is going to be what happened after. So next week, everybody, you need to tune back in, because there's way more to this story. And I did set it up at the beginning of this episode. Stephen, if you'll just stand by, because we're running out of time on this one. And we'll just hang on. Everybody, next Wednesday, there'll be another episode. Stephen's going to finish his story. I think you will find it equally as compelling as the story he just told. Stephen, again, thank you so much for telling that story again. I know you tell it a lot, but sometimes I'm sure you'd rather not. But I appreciate you sharing it with everybody. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week on TSRA-2A Ricochet.
You've been listening to TSRA-2A Ricochet with your host, Andy Turner, the Legislative Director Podcast of the Texas State Rifle Association. And until next time, you can find out more at TSRA-PAC.com and TSRA.com.